Welcome to this explainer, future educators. All right, let's just dive right in and master Competency 005A, Theater Around Us, together. We're going to unpack this so you can walk into your certification exam, and more importantly, your future classroom, feeling completely confident. I'm here to guide you. We aren't just memorizing facts today. We're really going to visualize exactly what these concepts look like when you are the one standing at the front of the room, leading your students to success. So here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll hit the classroom stage, then decoding the academic language, followed by theater in action. We'll wrap the whole thing up with exam prep and beyond, and finally, your teacher journey. Let's get to it. Section 1, the classroom stage, why theater matters. Okay, I want you to really picture this scenario. Step into the shoes of a teacher facing a super common instructional challenge. You're standing in front of your class, reading a fantastic book out loud. But as you look out at your students, you kind of realize they just aren't connecting with it. They're struggling to understand the character's motivations or feelings. You need a magic key, right? A way to unlock that engagement. As a future teacher, what do you do? How do you move them from just passively hearing the words to actually actively understanding them? Well, to solve that challenge, we actually need to shift our mindset and flip a really common myth right off the bat. For the exam, you've got to know that theater in the classroom is not just about putting on a school play or some final performance on a stage. The reality? Theater is this incredibly powerful, everyday tool for exploration, observation, and meaning-making. It's a process. When you bring theater into a reading lesson, you aren't trying to win an Oscar. You're literally giving your students a framework to make sense of the world around them. Moving right along to Section 2, decoding the academic language, the theory. Let's translate those big ideas into the specific terminology you'll actually see on your certification test. The exact descriptor for Competency 005A states that a teacher knows and understands how perception is developed through the use of elements of drama and conventions of theater. Now, I know that sounds super academic, right? But as an educator, you really need to be able to break down exactly what these terms mean for you and your future kids. So let's unpack the key vocabulary hidden inside this descriptor. The absolutely crucial word here is perception. Perception is basically the process of interpreting information that we gather through our senses. Now, in the context of your classroom, students develop this perception specifically through dramatic experiences. Think about it. When they're observing a classmate act something out, imagining a whole new scenario, or interpreting a character's tone of voice, they are actively developing their perception. It's hands-on, active sensory learning. And that brings us to the distinction between two other major terms from our descriptor, elements of drama versus conventions of theater. The elements of drama, those are your raw components, the tools we use to build the experience. We're talking about the character, the setting, the spoken dialogue, and the central theme. On the flip side, the conventions of theater are the accepted techniques and practices used in storytelling. It's like, think of the elements as your building blocks and the conventions as the rules for how we actually put those blocks together to tell a compelling story. So why does combining these elements and conventions matter so much for a growing child? Well, it leads us to a massive concept, empathy. Empathy is simply the ability to understand and share another person's feelings or experiences. By using the elements of drama, theater creates this safe space for your students to explore complex emotions and relationships. It literally allows them to step out of their own shoes and view situations from multiple perspectives. And honestly, this doesn't just deepen their understanding of a story, it fundamentally builds their empathy, their creativity, and their critical thinking skills. It's a total game changer. All right, Section 3, Theater in Action from Theory to Practice. This is where the rubber meets the road. We're taking that academic language and plugging it straight into your future lesson plans. Remember that challenge from earlier? The kids struggling to connect with a text? Here is exactly what solving that looks like in practice. Step 1. You, the teacher, read a story out loud. Step 2, you ask the students to pause and role-play how the different characters might feel during big events in that story. Step 3, through that active role-play, students explore multiple perspectives. See, they aren't just passively hearing about a character being sad or excited, they are physically interpreting and expressing those emotions, and that deepens their comprehension immensely. I want you to take a quick second to reflect on your future students. Every single classroom is wonderfully diverse, right? So how might different learners respond to this activity? Picture a student who maybe struggles with reading comprehension, but totally rocks at kinesthetic, hands-on learning. Or what about an English language learner? They might be able to grasp the emotion of a scene through body language way before they know every single vocabulary word. What instructional decisions would you make to ensure this role-playing activity is safe, effective, and inclusive for every single kid in your room? Let's jump into Section 4, Exam Prep and Beyond, Key Takeaways. We've talked a lot about classroom application, but hey, you do have a certification exam to pass. So if you remember absolutely nothing else from this explainer, burn these key takeaways into your memory. The exam expects you to know that theater develops observation, interpretation, and empathy. Remember that students learn deeply through dramatic exploration. Again, it's a process. Always connect the word perception to active engagement with dramatic experiences. And finally, keep your eye on the ultimate goal. Theater helps students understand multiple perspectives. Keep these core ideas in your back pocket, and you are going to navigate this competency with absolute confidence. Finally, Section 5, Your Teacher Journey, the Impact. Let's zoom out a bit and look at how all of this impacts the overarching journey of your teaching career. Look at this quote. Theater helps students make sense of themselves, others, and the world around them. Honestly, I think this perfectly captures why incorporating drama is just so vital. You aren't just teaching them a subject, you're giving them the tools to navigate their entire lives. When you help a kid understand a fictional character's perspective, you're actually helping them understand their peers, their families, and their communities. That is the real, lasting impact of the work you're preparing to do. As we wrap up this explainer, I want you to keep asking yourself this one fundamental question. What will this look like when I am teaching my own students? Visualize your classroom right now. Picture your students actively engaged, developing deep empathy, and expanding their perception through dramatic exploration. Use everything we've covered today, the theory, the vocab, the real-world applications, to confidently lead and inspire your future classroom. You've got the tools, you know the concepts, but how will you make them your own? Keep learning, keep reflecting, and I'll see you in the next explainer.